Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to start the next panel. It's the Fall of Ascalon lore Q&A session with Will McDermott, who's one of our writers, Matt Forebeck, who's the author of the Fall of Ascalon, and the Guild Wars 2 lead designer, Flannum. So I'm going to start off by asking you guys, what exactly is the Fall of Ascalon about? So you can maybe introduce the novel a little bit, and we'll take some Q&A from the audience. Just raise your hands, and I'll come to you and hold the mic up to you. So,
okay. Thank you. I'm Matt Forebeck. I'm the guy who's writing the novel. Fall of Ascalon is essentially the bridge story between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 takes place 250 years after Guild Wars 1. So there's a lot of things that have happened in that period of time, a lot of which you're going to learn about when you get the game, obviously, but we wanted to be able to tell the story of what happened in between. So the Fall of Ascalon is set 1 year before Guild Wars 2, and it's a story about people who have to go into Ascalon and recover a lost Char artifact. It is part of helping forge a peace between the Char and the human people. As part of this, as they go on their journey to find this artifact, they end up telling a lot of stories about their people and their cultures, so you can learn about how each of the different races sees themselves and is seen by other races in the world. Jeff Grubb, who's often up here with us, likens it to Canterbury Tales, but with lots of explosions. So that's essentially how the book works.
okay. Can you answer, one of the things fans have been asking about is whether the Guild Wars novels will be canon?
Yeah, the Guild Wars novels will all be canon. I'm writing the first one. There's going to be at least 2 more written by other people. But I've been working very closely with the development team on this to make sure that everything I write follows exactly with what's going to be happening in the games. Also, some of the stuff that I've come up with, these guys have told me will be appearing in the games, which will be even more fun for me. So.
Okay. Will, can you talk about your role in the novel writing process?
Sure. My name is Will McDermott. I'm one of the writers on Guild Wars 2, and I've written a couple, about 5 novels that are tie-in novels for other games. And so when we started looking at doing novels for Guild Wars 2, they came to me and said, would you kind of be a liaison between the authors and the continuity and the rest of the company, so that we can kind of keep things on track, and we want someone who's kind of been there and knows what they're doing, and isn't Jeff Grubb, because Jeff Grubb's just way too busy working on the game. I'm also pretty busy working on the game, but I'm able to carve some time out for the books. So I came in, and one of the first things I did was start looking for authors. And I know a lot of authors, and a lot of authors who write for games, novels that are based around games. And so we started putting feelers out. Jeff Grubb gave me some names. I had some names, or other people in the writing room who had some names. We started reaching out to some of these folks and got some samples in, and we chose 3 of them, first one being Matt. And I mentioned this yesterday, one of the things that I wanted to bring to this project is that there's a lot of game-related fiction out there, and a lot of it appeals to gamers, and I wanted our fiction to appeal not just to gamers, but to lovers of fantasy fiction. And I wanted these to be well-told stories with really well-rounded characters that you really cared about, that pulled you into the story and pulled you right through the story, and made for a fun reading experience, and not just for hey, that reminds me of the game kind of experience. And so when we were looking at authors, we looked very hard at how they told stories, and not just how well they could stay close to the game. And I think we got a really good slew of writers for these first 3 books, and I think you'll be pretty pleased with the results.
Matt, can you talk about a little bit about your writing background? What do you bring to the Guild Wars, the first Guild Wars?
Well, the first thing I did is I found the list he was talking about, and I knocked off the first 10 people. Right? No, I started out doing game design when I was in high school, and I started doing it professionally when I was at college as a freelancer. And I ran a game company called Pinnacle Entertainment Group. We did Deadlands, which was a zombie western role-playing game, and Brave New World, which was a superhero role-playing game. But I've written for just about every major company in the tabletop industry. About 5 or 6 years ago, I started writing novels for these companies. I've got 12 of them out right now. for Wizards of the Coast and for Games Workshop, and I wrote the novelization of the Mutant Chronicles movie, which came out last year. And I've also just sold 2 original novels to HarperCollins. So I've got a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff. I'm a lover of games first and foremost, right? That's really how I started doing these things. And novels are something I came to a little bit later. I'd always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to write novels, but games were always shinier, So I ended up doing a lot of games that way. And the benefit of that is that when I'm talking with these guys, I understand the language. I did a couple years of computer science in college as well. So, I mean, I can flowchart, I can program, I can design these kind of things, as well as write them. So we don't have to develop a glossary or a vocabulary. We already know how to talk to each other.
Eric, how involved are you in the novel? What's your role?
Okay, so my role is basically when Matt will send us chapters and send us examples. He'll send us the bits of the novel, and I'll have comments on it where there are things that maybe hey, Sylvari should act more like this, or this character should act more like this, or even looking at stuff that, like he said, opportunities to take things that he's put in the novel and bring them over into the game are really important for us to try to take a look at those opportunities. So we get, as he said, we want the novels to be canon. We want them to be, fill in that gap between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 really, really well. And so usually I'll, throw comments through Jeff or Will, but I'll look at it and comment on it, and then make sure that the game and the novels kind of agree as much as possible.
You mentioned trying to tie the game and the novel together. One of the questions I've seen in the forums is, what kind of game mechanics will be in the Fall of Ascalon? Will we see like resurrection signets? Will we see any skills?
We actually went back and forth about this. Should we have these kind of things? Should we make it more like the game? We're kind of ignoring some of that stuff, right? As far as resurrection portals and things like that, it's going to feel more like a traditional fantasy novel. So it's not. It doesn't feel like you're playing a game when you read the novel. It doesn't feel like you're in the game, but it feels like the world that it's in, right? So we're more interested in matching up the setting and the flavor and the feel of the game than we are in the mechanics of the game.
Anyone from the audience have questions? Anyone?
Hey, Matt. As a freelancer, when you're approached by different companies, how choosy can you be in the projects you pursue, and when you're taking in somebody else's world and working with it, what methods do you use to learn and figure out how to make something that's going to appeal to the fans just as much as fulfill you creatively?
Well, the first thing I do is I after the meeting's over and people are saying we want you to work on this thing, I go and immerse myself in it, right? I mean, I've done things. To stretch it even further, I did a collectible card game based on an anime called Monster Rancher, which was a cartoon for kids, right? And I was like 35 at the time. I had really not a lot of interest in watching this, and it wasn't something I had any passion for at the time. However, they sent me 26 hours of television to watch, and this is the hard part of the job, is I'd actually sit down and watch 26 hours of television. But by the end of it, I loved it. I really did. I cared about the characters. I saw what was exciting about it. I saw what the passion that the creators had put into it and what the kids were responding to in it, right? So if I can figure out what's exciting about that world or that game or that setting and what interests me in that, then I can turn that love around and show it in what I'm working on too. And some people have a hard time doing that, but I mean, it's a creative effort that somebody's put their heart into. There's got to be something of value in just about everything out there. Everything in this room, for instance, somebody has put a lot of their heart and money and time and effort into. So there's something of value there, right? So I always try to look for that thing and then see how I can take it and do something innovative and new with it.
Okay. Do you know specifically when the book's going to come out, or about when we can expect
Word
it?
is that it's going to be in spring of 2010.
My question was, in the book, is there like a main character that you're following the storyline through that'll go through all 3 books? Or
Every one of the writers is doing a separate story, essentially, right? So my book will be complete in and of itself. So you can read this book, or you can read book 2, or you can read book 3. Read them in any order you want to. You don't have to worry about picking one up and not knowing what's going on or anything like that. So yeah, my story starts out with this main character who's a human explorer, a thief, kind of an Indiana Jones type of a character, and he gets hired on to find this artifact that they need to be able to forge the piece, right? And it's a story about how the team comes together, how they go off and manage to pull this off without killing each other, right? So it's a lot of good fun that way. But the other guys who are developing their stories, I know what their outlines are. I know roughly where they're going to be going and that kind of stuff. But and sometimes we will share characters back and forth, right? But we're very much developing it independently. So,
Will we see any of the characters from the books in the game at all?
It is definitely our hope that some of the really compelling characters that live to the end of the book, that when the game comes out, that you would see those in game somewhere. This has been a very collaborative effort. I talked a little bit about the process. When we sat down with the authors, we had ideas in-house of kind of where we wanted to go with some of these stories, but we wanted it to be a collaborative effort. And so we brought the authors in and we basically brainstormed, say, okay, here's kind of where we want to go. What can you bring to the table? And the authors kept surprising us with the ideas that they brought, and we're like, wow, that's really cool. And Jeff and Ree Sosby would say, wow, we like that, and we're going to see if we can't make that part of the canon that we hadn't even thought of yet and put it in the game. And definitely with the characters, the ones who are the most compelling and of course, like I said, actually survive. We have full intentions of dropping them into the game so that players can interact with them and see them and get kind of a full experience between both the book and the game. That being said, it is a game and it's still in development, and we don't know, exactly where we will put them and whether or not they'll make it in, but it is our intention to put some of these characters in the game.
You said that like some of the other authors, you're sharing like characters and ideas like that. Does it mean are all 3 books bridging the 250-year gap? Are we gonna get books after Guild Wars 2 is released or before, or like what's the timeline for the 3 books?
The 3 books are 3 distinct stories. They're 3 different stories, and you don't want to think of them in any way as a trilogy. They're just 3 Guild Wars novels that are going to tell different stories. They are set at different times. I'm not really going to go into the other 2 very much. Matt's book is set about a year before the beginning of Guild Wars 2. It's at a time when the humans and the Char are just starting to realize that they have way too many problems to keep fighting each other. They're each fighting wars on about 3 different fronts, and they would like to maybe get rid of one of those fronts if they possibly can. And so there is kind of an idea on both sides that maybe it's time for us to stop fighting each other, at least for now, until maybe we can get some of these other things taken care of. Not everybody on either side is happy about that decision, but this book takes place at the very, very beginnings of those talks, and what you will then see in the game is kind of the fruition of what happens in the book and how those truce talks can then progress. The other 2 books are going to tell different stories.
Is one of the dragons going to appear in the book?
You're going to have to read it.
One of the other questions I've seen is, will reading Fall of the Ascalon or any other of the novels give you any kind of advantage when you play Guild Wars 2? Are there going to be any Easter eggs, like any hints about the game that will help you?
Well, obviously they're going to give you advantages in that you'll be able to, get a little bit of insight into what a Sylvari is all about, or what an Asura is all about, or what the Char are like in that time frame. I think everybody's familiar with the Char are like, in the time of Guild Wars 1, but they're very, very different in Guild Wars 2. And so they'll get kind of some insight that way. No actual game advantages or anything like that. But if anybody who wants to is really interested in kind of the story and where Guild Wars 2 is going and where Guild Wars is going as a world, where Tyria is going as a world, probably would be very well served to read the book.
Do we know about how much these books are going to cost?
They're going to come out as paperbacks, and they will be priced as pretty much any normal fantasy paperback. I can't say for sure because I don't know, but you can assume probably $6-7, whatever a paperback's going for these days.
I think it's about $7.99 is what it goes for, except if you buy it at discounts online or anything like that.
Another question I've seen is, will the book come with any in-game bonus item or any kind of merchandise tie-in?
We can't really say at the moment because that's more of a marketing kind of decision, and those things will be decided probably closer to the time when the book's coming out.
Is it going to release North America at the same time? Like, is Canada going to get it at the same time the States is?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it'll be. It's being published by Pocket Books, and they will distribute it wherever English language Pocket Books are distributed. And Pocket Books also has the ability to license it out for other languages, and it is definitely our intention for it to appear in other languages. But a lot of that is in the hands of Pocket Books, so I can't really say when or which languages.
Matt, you were talking about how the book follows the point of view of one human character. Will you explore other points of view, or are each of the 3 books going to follow like one person, one particular character?
Well, in my book, there's you have your major viewpoint character, right? But as we were saying before, it kind of has this Canterbury Tales thing in it, where people are telling their own stories about their different races. So each race has got at least 1 or 2 different characters in each of the major races that are going to explain how they view themselves and how they view the other races, right? So you're going to get a lot of different viewpoints in the book. It's a third-person limited narrator, right? So you're not like I did this. You're not inside of his head entirely. So you get a little bit of swapping around. But I always like to have one strong viewpoint character that everybody can identify with when I write, right? Some writers like to just jump from head to head to head, and I find that gives me nausea, so I like to just stick with the one guy. So.
Any more questions from the audience?
Anybody?
I'm running out of questions. You want to talk a bit more about?
I don't know, is there anything you guys want to say about it?
All right. If there's no more questions, we might just wrap this up. All right. If there are no more questions from the audience, then we will wrap up the session. Thank you very much for our 3 panelists for showing up. Matt Forebeck, he's an author of Guild Wars, Fall of Ascalon, Will McDermott, and Eric Flannum. Thank you very much. Round of applause, please. At 2 o'clock, we will have another Guild Wars 2 art book giveaway. And we've got a Q&A with our ArenaNet artists coming up at 3:30, and then we've got a signing at 4:30. And if you haven't got a copy of Guild Wars 2 art book, there will be two more giveaway sessions tomorrow. And of course, it will be on sale at a later date after PAX. So if your friends are coming up to you and they're like, "Oh, I didn't get an art book, I'm so jealous," well, tell them they'll be for sale later. All right, thanks everyone.